Why can't you just breed worms in a continuous flow worm bin? You can, but we'll go into the reasons why you want to keep your worm breeding separate from your vermicomposting in today's episode of Coffee and Compost. My name is Steve Churchill, and this is the Urban Worm Company. A reader got in touch this week and asked, why can't I breed worms in my continuous flow through bin? Why do I need to breed worms in those shallow trays I see everyone using? This is a great question, and the quick answer is you don't. If you're successfully vermicomposting, then your worms are probably reproducing fairly well on their own. And if you're doing some worm breeding, then those worms are eating some form of organic material and pooping out worm castings, so you're doing vermicomposting there as well. Now, before I go on, this is probably a good time to make a distinction between vermicomposting and vermiculture. Vermicomposting is simply the process of using earthworms and microorganisms to consume organic waste to produce worm castings. Vermiculture, on the other hand, is worm breeding, or what most people call worm farming. You're simply trying to use the worms you've got to make more worms. It's as simple as that. And real quick, if vermiculture and increasing your worm population, whether you want to sell them or help build up your own vermicomposting operation, is something that interests you, then I've got a course from an associate of mine to tell you about at the end of the video. And that course will come with a 25% off coupon code to get you started with growing your own pure red wigglers. Okay, now back to the question. So worms should breed just fine in a vermicomposting setup, whether that's a Rubbermaid bin, a continuous flow urban worm bag, or a commercial scale CFT. But you can't optimize for vermiculture in a vermicomposting setup, and you can't efficiently vermicompost in a vermiculture operation for two reasons. So the main benefit of using those small trays, which are actually mortar trays that you can buy from most hardware stores, is that you can manage worms in their various life stages separately. So each tray will have worms of very similar ages. Here's a basic example. In one tray, you'll have adult worms of breeding age who will be forming cocoons. Simple enough. At a certain point, and this is what that course I was talking about covers, you'll remove the breeders and start new bins with them. The cocoons will remain where they'll eventually emerge and grow into juveniles and eventually breeding adults. Keeping worms of differing ages separate is really important if you want to eventually sell them. Most customers expect adult worms that are as large as you can make them, and this is actually in your interest, because if you're selling by the pound, you want to make your worms as large as possible before shipping them, because you'll be selling fewer of those precious worms that you worked so hard to produce. You simply can't keep adult breeders away from juveniles and cocoons in a vermicomposting setup. You need separate, dedicated bins for this, and that's where those mortar trays come in. But this doesn't apply to just smaller scale breeders using those trays. Our supplier of worm castings maintains their own hatch operations as well, and each one of their hatch bins and castings production bins has worms of similar ages, because once these worms reach about 1.5 years old, they begin to slow down consumption and castings production, and they eventually age out of the vermicomposting operation altogether. And no, I'm not aware of any retirement communities for earthworms. Real quick, guys, if you're enjoying this video and want me to make more of them, please like it, hit subscribe, and click that little bell to let you know every time we release a new video. Now back to the topic. So the other reason to keep vermicomposting and vermiculture separate is that the conditions for vermiculture tend to be wetter and the organic waste richer in a vermiculture or worm breeding setup. Excess moisture well over 75% water content is a huge no-no in a continuous flow bin of any kind. That excess moisture seeps its way to the bottom and attracts worms with it, which produces a really wormy harvest, which defeats the entire point of continuous flow. Even if you're not using continuous flow, a wet vermicompost is very difficult to screen, and the compost is very likely to stick to itself. So unless you plan to separate worms from their vermicompost manually, which can be therapeutic for some people and really tedious for others, then you want your vermicompost to be drier, right around 50% moisture, which is where compost will form a ball when squeezed but won't yield any drops of water. With vermiculture, you also want really rich pockets of organic waste to encourage the worms to congregate and make a love connection. So you might be watching this because you're interested in a worm breeding operation, maybe for profit, maybe for your own use. I mean, pure species of red wigglers can sell for well over $60 to $70 per pound as of the filming of this video. If you're interested in learning more about this, I want you to check out a course from a longtime associate of mine named Larry Shire. He's a self-taught worm grower, and I've referred lots of would-be business owners to him. At $199, the course isn't cheap, and it's not produced in some fancy studio, but the knowledge you gain from it will move you forward light years ahead of where you are now if you're just starting to research this. The course has 16 self-paced lessons with videos, downloadable ebooks, worksheets, and access to a private Facebook group run by Larry himself. In fact, if the course doesn't work for you, Larry's going to return your money, so there's kind of no risk. Just click this little link above my left shoulder or check the video description for a link to the course. And if you end up signing up for Larry's course through the link in this video, just email the receipt to me at Steve at Urban Worm Company, and I'll give you a unique discount code for the pure red wigglers you'll need to get started on your worm breeding journey. So to wrap it up, yes, you can do some worm breeding while worm composting, and you can't help but do some worm composting while worm breeding, but you can't optimize for both at the same time, especially in a continuous flow bin. That's it. We're going to see you on the next video.